One of the points you make in your book is that you are very much against leftism. But in the process of talking about what leftism entails, you contrast, and I always say contrast is the conduit to clarity, you contrast leftism with liberalism. Help us understand that.
So leftism is very different from liberalism. I think there are many sensible liberals in America, and that's a great thing. I think the liberals still believe in the limited role of government, for sure. And they believe in that, they believe in free market basically. They believe in free capitalism. They understand a problem with capitalism is nothing is perfect. They understand there is a limit to capitalism and they're honest about it, but they are not saying, oh, because of there are some imperfections in capitalism, let's completely dismantle the system and try out the socialism all over again. That was happened 21 times and failed every single time that was tried, right? So liberals are very sensible. They do point out very, very good points about the problem that caused by capitalism, the inequality, and the gap between inequality is a real thing in America. And there's just so much disparity. What kind of education you can get, what kind of safety that you can get based on your income status. It's nothing to about your skin color. I think America's struggle is not really your skin color issues. It's really based on the income bracket. What neighborhood do you live in? What zip code do you belong to? Based on that zip code, your children's future is very predictable because of what school they're going to go to, what friends they're going to hang out to, what healthcare you're going to receive, all of that. And this is something that we all need to work on and paying attention to. But the leftist ideology is a complete mob ideology. It's a completely now it's a gender ideology they're playing. It makes based on no real logic or truth. They say math is racist. Math is not real. It's made up by the white man to control minority. Like North Korea, they say 1 + 1 is not 2. 1 + 1 is, according to Kim Jong-il, is bigger one, because when you add 1 drop of water to another drop of water, it becomes bigger one. It does not become 2. That kind of logic where men can give birth, and this kind of the ideology driven by the left, and they are the ones that pushing for cancel culture. They are the one pushing for destroying American Constitution, and that's why I think there's a huge difference between the liberals and the leftists. And I fight against leftism, not the liberalism at all.
How dangerous is critical theory or critical race theory from your perspective?
It is how can a society prosper when you say that your country is irredeemable? Like your country is so evil. The only way for this sin to be repented is by destroying all of it. Right? No nation wants to prosper and move forward and inventing new amazing technology, medicines, gonna teach their own children, hate your country with all your guts. That is just not. And also, not only is it hating your own country, like hating freedom, but hating your people. Like what CRT preaches is that every white person, especially white heterosexual men, are inherently evil. There's no ending to that evilness. Like in North Korea, if your ancestors were landowners or capitalists or did not support the communism, then your blood is forever tainted. Your genetics is oppressive. That's how North Korea divided people into 51 different classes. But now in America, based on your skin color, people are divided. Who is the biggest victim? Who is less victim? Based on your skin color. It's nothing about that. Like now they say my son is a privileged person because he's a half white, half Asian. Doesn't matter that his mother was a sex slave at 13 and sold and escaped from the most oppressed nation in the whole world because of his skin color. He can never understand what oppression means and understand the real tragedy. So America became in this very black and white binary worldview that is not based on any truth. And that only can create division. And when people are divided, dictators thrive. that is a perfect environment of tyranny to rise. And that's why they're so obsessed in dividing American people. Divide us based on our skin color, divide us based on our political views, and dividing. At the end, we have nowhere else to turn other than government.
You tell a gripping story in your book about what happened to you in Chicago on Michigan Avenue. It had a tremendous impact on you. Not only were you physically assaulted, but you see a harbinger of things to come unless something changes.
Yeah, I think that was a really catalyst why I wrote my second book. When I was at Columbia, hearing about this nonsense woke ideology where, men can be women, women can be men, white men are like the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity, and the Western civilization is the evil of all. And I thought, like, okay, these kids graduate from university, go into real world, start paying taxes and have their own family. They're gonna understand how the world works. So that was at least a little hope that I held on to when I was at college. When I got out, and during the pandemic, the first year, I was walking down the Mission Avenue during the bright daylight around like 2 or 4 p.m. afternoon with my son. I was robbed by a few Black women, and nothing too wrong with the Black women robbed me because I was raped by Asian men. It's not about anything about skin color. Anybody can be a murderer. Anybody can be a thief. It was not about skin color thing. And because I was being robbed by these few Black women, and I was trying to call the police for help. And people on the street were circling around me and yelling at me that I'm a racist because I was trying to call the police on these thieves. And they say, I'm a racist. And that's when I really witnessed this madness of crowd. How Americans are collectively gone mad. They cannot see any truth anymore. Only thing they could see was a skin color at the moment. They thought a privileged Asian woman being robbed in front of a 2-year-old toddler is not a thing that I deserve to be helped. Because these women were perpetrating that crime on me, were Black women, they deserved all the help. And that's when I realized, oh wow, we are really, really far down in this road of this groupthink that people cannot think for themselves anymore. And when we cannot stop think for ourselves, that's when Mao happens, what Stalin happens, when Kim Il-sung happens.
And it can happen. I mean, I heard Elon Musk in an interview not long ago talk about the fact that human beings have a life cycle and civilizations have a life cycle. And when you think about that in pragmatic terms, sometimes it makes me wonder, are we too far at the edge now of the precipice to turn back? Do you see hope?
I see hope. I don't think that, the Roman Empire lasted for more than 500 years. There were many empires last longer than American Empire. I don't think it's even empires, like American civilization, the Western civilization. I think in a way that is to me is what is the alternative if we let America go? This is the last hope for humanity. This is the greatest hope for humanity. What is the alternative? Are we going to choose or become like China, right? That is no alternative that we can choose from. And in a way also the humanity is connected more than ever. We have internet. We have so many great technology unlike before. We have so many new tools. In a way, of course, dictators have a lot of tools to control people, but also we have a lot of tools to resist that threat that is posed by dictators. And I really truly believe as long as Americans keep the right to arm the bear, have the guns in their home to protect their private property and their liberty, I really don't think that we can ever truly become like North Korea and China to that degree. The first thing that in Cambodia, the genocide happened, the first thing they did was confiscating all the guns. That happened in North Korea, that happened in China. Whenever people lose their guns, that really full tyranny can happen. But as long as America keep the Constitution, and especially the guns, I really don't think that we are going to allow government officials drag 3-generation families out and execute them. Because before you die, you're going to shoot them back, you're going to fight somehow. It's just very dangerous game that you are playing with your own citizens when they have the right to like protect themselves. And some people say, how do you compete with a government that has a nuke? They cannot nuke their own entire country. Who are they gonna like enslave afterwards? Who are they gonna war afterwards? No government is saying gonna nuke everybody in their nation, right? So I think because governments have nukes, that doesn't mean that the guns are meaningless. Guns are still very powerful equalizer that we need to hold on to if we really want to protect our livelihoods and our liberty here.
But from another perspective, how do you break the iron grip that China has on America? I mean, if you look at someone like, you mentioned Jeff Bezos and Amazon, you realize that he can't really say anything negative about China. The movie industry can't really say anything about negative about China, because if you do, your profits are going to evaporate. You're going to suddenly be in a very difficult position. So people have to continue, or at least want to continue, facilitating China, and China literally is now controlling in many aspects American industry and American culture. I mean, you mentioned you're not on TikTok. You mentioned you're not on TikTok. Well, I mean, you don't be controlled by the very country that facilitated your rape.
Yeah, even these Ivy League schools, they get so much funding from China. They cannot talk anything negative of China in this college, even campuses, right? So the threat from China, the control from China is real. But the great thing that we still have in America is we live in a free democracy. We still have freedom of speech. So first thing that we need to do is us educating ourselves about China and the threat that it's posing. And secondly, talk about it, raise awareness about Chinese threat. The third, we gotta elect the politicians that recognize this threat, that want to stand up for this bully and fighting for American interests. So I think in a way, we still have so many tools left. We can go learn, we can buy books reading about China. Second, we can talk to our family members, our children, our community, go to church and talk about that. And third, we can elect the politicians that share our vision and why that we need to resist Chinese threat in this country. Then I think there's so many steps us to do before we lose our hope. And I'm always excited every day, like how much we can do in America right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a powerful word of encouragement. I've often said that the ballot box is necessary, but it's not sufficient. And as you've explained earlier on, there are so many things we need to do at a grassroots level, and a lot of it involves parenting. As you were talking about with respect to the phone. I see kids going off to school. They're not looking at one another. They're not bouncing a ball. They're simply glued to their phones, and they are being the recipients of propaganda.
Yeah, it's a real, children is our future. There's no denying that. They are the ones going to lead the next generation. And as a parent, as an adult, if we fail to transfer the knowledge that we know about the world, I think that is, like, to me, the biggest responsibility that adults or the parents have. Really letting them know that what we understood about the world, so they can go further and finding new truth and new things after that, right? But now we are failing in educating our children. American children suffering from, they cannot even read. Their reading comprehension skill is so low. They cannot even do basic math. They cannot compete you cannot do math. You cannot really create any new things. So really focusing on real education. Stop telling them about this woke stuff, like telling them actual physics and chemistry and biology, the real biology for sure, and reading on comprehension and teaching them about these classical ideas, the books, that how it can expand our minds. There's so much more in life than just the smartphone in their pocket, right? So that principle that we need to live by as a parent. So many American adults are also addicted to smartphone and do not know how to self-regulate their time on social media. And so I think that should be the first step. And then also not only just voting, but when we even buy products. That's why I love capitalism. In capitalism, you vote by purchasing, like what you buy, right? when you really truly do not support certain things, don't buy things from China. Support the business that was made in America. There are so many great new businesses rising in America that might be a bit more costly, but because it's more humane, they respect human rights along the way, making their products. So we can be more conscious about what we buy, what we consume in this free market system, and that what we buy, what we promote, gonna influence the producers, and they're gonna try to do follow our vision, and that's how we can gradually change our future.
And you're a personification of that, because a lot of people probably don't understand that you had no education. You had no access to education. You get to South Korea and you have the opportunity to learn, and you become this learning machine. And now you are someone that has a great deal of insight on geopolitical realities. But that has not come by watching soap operas or engaging in pep and dribble, but rather through reading, through educating yourself, the power of reading. And I often tell people on this podcast, on our broadcast, through our outlets, that you really don't read a book unless you've read it a few times. I mean, I repeat this often. I mean, I read any book that I'm really interested in, including yours. I read 3 times. The first time I read it quickly. The second time I read it with a pentel, underlining, and the third time with a magic marker or with a underliner like this. So then I feel like I own the material and I have the right to do a podcast with you because I've really taken the time to understand your perspective. So you are the personification of someone that has taken the time to learn. And I think that you can encourage people through your example to do what you've done.